Hey, Laura, how are you? Thank you so
Good.
much for being here, getting on the call. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I remember that we tried scheduling this so long, but finally this is happening. I'm really excited.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us, man. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm a fan of flying cat marketing as well. So it's going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And those who don't know, Laura is an accounting executive at Dreamdata. She's one of the top-notch salespeople that I know of in the LinkedIn community, and Dreamdata and Flying Cat are also partners. So we have a relationship from that side. But for today, I just want to dive into almost everything that you talked about, which is there are so many things that I want to dive into. There's like the LinkedIn content that you put out. You talk about social selling. You talk about so much stuff, and I would really like to dive deeper into those things. So let's start. I
Okay.
think the starting point that I have is um, the biggest theme that you are associated with. I mean, your personal brand, right? Which is the idea of social selling. I think we should just start with what is social selling? Why does it matter? How to measure it? Like a social. If I were to ask you about a social selling one-on-one,
Mm.
would you describe it?
Yeah, so it really, I mean, it's a journey with social selling because it depends on where you come from. I was working at Gartner before I joined Dreamdata, and like social selling, or back in the days, it was used to be called employee advocacy, used to just be like reshares of company blogs, or we produce some very cool piece of content and then go reshare everybody so your network can see that. And usually the network, like the ones who like you, they're going to like it but never read it. It's like not engaging at all. There's a piece of content that probably is interesting, but it's more like staying top of mind and keeping the brand top of mind for everybody. But when I joined Dreamdata, it really flipped into the other direction of actually being social. So it's not just content that you're sharing, but you're being social, you're exposing yourself as a person. So the content that you produce is actually written and feels like written as a person. If you only just do it for the content's sake and for like written content's sake, you would still feel that this is a person who wrote it. It's not a message of like, oh, we help IT companies with business transformation or something. It feels human, like some stuff that you would say to your friend when they ask, what do you do, or how do you solve this problem, and so on. So that's what we did with Dreamdata. And it was a long process to figure out, okay, this is actually working for us. So there are a couple of things for us, at least, that the reasons for why it's working. How did we figure out that through measures? It was that we sell to marketers most of the time, or at least at the beginning we did a lot to marketers, and they're always on LinkedIn. So this is the perfect audience for LinkedIn. If you're selling to marketers or salespeople, or figure out the people that are on LinkedIn often, it works very well with a lot of social content. It works well with educating them on the platform where you don't push them to convert to specific, I don't know, demo booking or free account or anything, but just education. Because when looking back into challenger sales, what I have been taught, like what is it now, 4 years ago, there are three pillars of the actual sale. You teach your prospect, teach, tailor, take control. So you teach your prospect, you tailor the sales process, and then take control of it through the process. So you figure out when you're going to close a deal. And this is quite outdated in nowadays because teaching does not belong to sales anymore, especially for the SaaS businesses that we are into right now, where there's a lot of competition. There are a lot of alternatives that are not being considered as competition, but you're still being set together to those alternatives as well. So the more you educate your buyers through your content, the less they will need to figure out that out by themselves. So if they want to be educated, they will never call a salesperson and say, "Oh, Laura, I would like to do attribution. Can you teach me, like, what are the best practices of attribution?" No, no, no. They'll go to communities, they'll go to content, they'll go to Google and figure out what that is. And the more you're exposing and educating your buyers through the platforms they are in, the more likely it is that they're going to find you in the other platforms as well. So your content that you have written through working through engine optimization, or through paid ads, or any other stuff that you're working into marketing, or even stopping by a booth at the event because they have heard about your content, say, oh, tell me more what you do. So this is like a very long-tailed story of what social selling is. And the Dreamdata, we quickly figured out that it's working because there was one post that went semi-viral, and we saw that on our website. Like the first day after the post went viral, we got, I think, like 3x our website visitors of that day, and I think 2x our MQLs for the week, which was like, okay, something is working, or people are just getting curious and they do want to do demos with us or start a free account. And then we started to do that a little bit more structured with the whole team and figuring out what type of content works, so we can either hit that more viral posts, or through the compound interest of all of us working on the same, then there will be the drip effects of inbounds coming in from all of us posting.
Right. Sounds interesting. So it sounds like this idea of social selling and the way that you've implemented this at Dreamdata is more of a output of your own trial and error. Like you were doing something on LinkedIn, you saw some results, and then you decided to give it more of a structured way of doing it and tripling down on it, right?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, we knew that we needed to be on LinkedIn. No matter what, we're going to use LinkedIn paid ads. And we're going to have a profile page for the company on LinkedIn as well. And we knew that we need to do some posting, but we were kind of like, we just were posting because we knew that we have to be out there. And since you're a startup, nobody knows what you're actually solving and what your brand is. And this was the way to build a bigger awareness of what it is, what kind of problems you're solving. So I'm all right if you don't remember what company I work for, or if you don't remember my name. But once you see my posts, then you will still remember, okay, she's the woman who I think talks about attribution, or talks about marketing optimization, and talks to the marketing people. So it's like, through that interest, the more I post and the more the team members are posting, then we're able to reach a larger audience for that. And
Right.
then we start to scale it.
And then how do you measure it? What is the way to quantify the impact of social selling?
Yeah. So the beginning of it was the very vanity metrics that everybody speaks about. It's like, yeah, engagements and likes and comments. And so, oh, we went semi-viral. Then we checked Dreamdata to have a look at the traffic numbers and the numbers of MQLs. And of course, we have a look at where do they come from. So some of them either came direct or they came through organic LinkedIn. If they click a link of your company on LinkedIn and then land in your website, that's organic LinkedIn. So that's where they came from. And that part is also mapped in Dreamdata as a customer journey to further going. So if somebody landed from that page, then we know that this is what is working. But in addition to that, I claim in big words as, oh, I don't do outbound and everybody's coming inbound to me on LinkedIn. It's like, it's not that, it's like flooded with inbounds. But people do come, like a couple of week, reach out and say, oh, attribution, or, oh, somebody told me that, oh, show me more about the platform. And that's another way of measuring as well. Where do they come from? So if they come to you through LinkedIn and ask for a demo, then we can see that it's actually working. And in our size of the team, we're still able to manage that and figure out that this is a channel that we want to continue being on.
Right, right. And how big of a role does your own product has? Because of course it's an attribution software. You sell it to other companies to fix their attribution problems. So I imagine that it would definitely be a facilitator in connecting all of the dots with the activity that you're doing in LinkedIn for your own attribution, right?
Mhm. It depends, because Dreamdata can attribute digital touches, that if it had a digital effect, okay, so somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn through a message and said that they want to have a demo because they saw my post, okay, that can be put into the customer journey. But more of those types of times when they click on our company. But okay, they saw our post, they saw, okay, where does Laura work? Or she put a link of Dreamdata into that. So they go on the company page on LinkedIn, click see more, and then land on our website. That's what we can measure. And if those numbers are growing month by month, we know that people come more and more into our website due to LinkedIn. And since our Dreamdata's account is slowly but growing, but our personal profiles are growing exponentially. So that means that has an effect. But from like the exact attribution picture, it's not as straightforward, because this is like a word of mouth. Where have you heard about us from? Or maybe I've heard about it from Laura's posts, or maybe I've heard about this from Flying Cat Marketing, and then I went to LinkedIn and then followed Laura and saw her posts, and then I clicked somewhere or came in direct. So okay, so what do you actually attribute? You cannot attribute stuff that is not digitally present.
That makes sense. I think if I think of it in terms of Flying Cat's own, marketing and the kind of stuff that we do on LinkedIn, it makes a lot of sense because recently I think we were in a revenue team meeting and we noticed that we have a correlation between how often we post on LinkedIn and how the branded search impressions go up in Google Search Console. So there's definitely a correlation that we can see there, like a direct one.
Yeah.
So one thing that I'm curious about is we have, we put the kind of stuff that people do on LinkedIn into a big, broad level bucket of content marketing, right? People are just talking about content. They're putting things out that resonate with their targeted audience. And then we have this idea of social selling, which salespeople, like you, are mostly talking about and actively engaging in. How do you draw the line between LinkedIn content marketing versus LinkedIn social selling? So, for
Yeah.
example, maybe a better way to phrase this would be that if two people are, posting on LinkedIn, it from a third eye perspective, it looks like they're both doing the same job, but one is an account executive doing social selling in their circle, while the other one is a marketer just doing normal content marketing. How do you draw that line?
We don't. And it becomes quite natural as well. So like we have not set specific guidelines for us, like, oh, if you're in sales you have to post this type of stuff, or if you're in marketing you have to do this. So the company account is of course much more on brand, whatever product releases we've got, and they do launch that first and speak like the Dreamdata language, the way that we write our content about. So that's kind of a standard content marketing. But in addition to that, we figure out that there are pieces of content that actually work to engage people more and for them to start booking even more meetings with us. So not content, product marketing is the perfect one for salespeople to write on, for engaging more people into the conversation of what it is that we actually do. So when you see me posting stuff about social selling, about myself, about being a mom, being a woman in sales, and so on, all that type of stuff, it gathers engagement and it gathers, like, I don't know, the ego boosts. But then there is the other part that is actually gathering prospects, and it has much less engagement than the fun stuff does. But it actually generates revenue. So we figured out that product marketing, if we do videos, if we do screenshot of the product and tell people, like, in really simple words, what is the problem that we're trying to fix, like very single tiny problem that we're trying to fix, and show that with the product, either a screenshot or a video. You might have seen, like, when we speak about, oh, I closed the deal and this is how the deal was engaged, these are the people that were engaged. So this is one of the content pieces that we write with product, because we know that a lot of people see it and they say, oh, this is interesting, I wonder how a customer journey of our client would look like. And that's one of the pieces that we jointly know that it works. But for sales or for marketing, for personal posts, it is just the preference of a person. What do they feel like posting? Do you feel like posting your personal stuff and what happens at work? Do that if it brings you energy. If it's too tough, don't. You want to do video, we will help you to like be the best at video. But if it feels intimidating for you to do video, let's not overuse your energy and let's focus it on something else that you feel energized and uplifted by either sharing or building something else inside of the company as well.
Right. Um, how do you think of a company that wants to leverage social selling? Um, like, I'm just trying to figure out what team do you think should own this? Um, would there be would this be like a department focused thing, like, hey, sales needs to own social selling content on LinkedIn, or maybe it should be marketing? Should it be like a collaborative effort, or is it like something that the whole company needs to be like, together in?
Yeah, it starts with the management team. So it doesn't matter sales or marketing or anything. So it start at our situation with Dreamdata, it was the CEO and the CMO who are already active on LinkedIn, and that had the effects on the rest of the teams to do it. Because if it was, let's say, oh, this is a sales effort, let's say we want sales to start posting on LinkedIn, and let's make a competition for them so they become better at social selling. I can tell you now that it's going to fail, because people will not buy into it if their upper management is not doing it. So we're very fortunate that at Dreamdata it started there, which means that as soon as we see the co-founders posting, people are encouraged to do the same because we know it's working. We do have a common Slack channel where people are posting their posts as soon as they have posted something on social, which also has an effect of all the rest of the people seeing that this is okay to post as a first thing, and that spending time on LinkedIn is still work. I have had people asking me, is like, oh, how long time do you spend? Is it not too much? What does your manager think about it? And so on. Well, this is work. This is a part of the process. Like, somebody is using 2 hours to send out meetings, to send out emails, cold emails. I spend 2 hours engaging on LinkedIn with other people and booking meetings that way. So it's equal way of working. But if you were to take it back to who should own it, it should start at the leadership, but usually I see marketing owning this and empowering sales to do it. It started with our CMO as well. And it's just kind of lucky that I picked it up and are continuing doing that in tandem with him and building some of the stuff around it in the sales team. But it starts at marketing, especially if sales are struggling. They don't know what to post. So somebody from the content team have to help them out to figure out like what type of content would work. How should I personalize it a little bit more? Because generally marketing people are a little bit more creative with words than salespeople would be. But it's also maybe like a misconception of what one think of.
Yeah. And do what is the way that you think of to incentivize people to do that? So you mentioned, for example, that you think of it like work, right? Because whatever you're doing on LinkedIn would have a effect on the company from a sales standpoint, indirectly, right?
Yeah.
So it can be thought of in the sense of, someone sending outbound emails, exactly as you mentioned. So is that a right way to think about it? Like, for example, incentivizing the team to do it on company's time?
Um, there are several ways of how to do. So first of all, I would never incentivize teams to do like a personalized competition. Who, like, I don't know, posts the most or who gets the most engagement. This is something you cannot control. What you can control is the output that you do, and you can control doing it as a team as well. So if we say that as a team we want to reach an X amount of engagements, cool. This is reachable. This is like helping each other to be better and to post better content. Or let's say we as a team, we agree that we will post once a week, and if we post once a week for X amount of months, then we're going to do something cool. This works as well because then you're encouraging each and every person to do it, and you show that this is important for the company and this is a team initiative. If you start incentivizing people per person who did the most of X on LinkedIn, it's tough because posting on LinkedIn is having a compound effect on the whole team. So if I started in a competition having 20,000 followers and starting to post and so on, well, this is kind of not fair. But even if you put people into smaller buckets who has more followers or more targeted followers and so on, it would create an equal competition, because what one person does will have an effect on somebody else. And if one person is just blasting LinkedIn messages trying to book meetings, but that could be done on the back of somebody else's posts. So kind of it can only be a team thing to do. And even
Right.
like if you booked a meeting through LinkedIn, is it just you who did this or was it actually the team? So it's that type of a incentive I don't think can be personalized in that way that you will get X if you do that on LinkedIn as your own.
That makes sense. So you think of it like a team effort, some sort of a collaborated effort where we're stacking effort on top of each other, right? So, for example, if someone is posting and they're doing great, then that's awesome because you can also benefit from that, and perhaps like a deal can close through your content, and the whole company will still be benefiting from it.
Yeah, I can give you an example of something that we still are trying to figure this out. So we run LinkedIn Lives, and I am on LinkedIn Lives every second week. And there come people who do comment and like and do click attend and so on. Normally, as a salesperson, I work on larger deals, and I only work on those deals that have like X amount of employees in the company. But there are a lot of smaller ones who come into those LinkedIn Lives. And if I was only incentivized to do it as a person, I would personally only go after the big ones that we're at this meeting, and I will go after them to try to book them or try to engage them more and so on. The rest would not be felt like, well, they were just there. So what we did is also we asked our outbound focused salesperson to look into those attendees that they would go after engaging them in the conversations, figuring out who were the target audience and so on. And no matter if they're big or small, they would be taking the first steps so that can be further filtered out to the other account executives in the team as well. And that becomes more of a team initiative where we build the demand, we book the meetings further, and people who are best at doing something, they do that. Instead of we would say, oh, Laura, everything that you do on LinkedIn, go book, go close, go get your commissions on it. It will not help Dreamdata that much.
That makes sense. Yeah. That was a perfect example, I think. Uh, yeah. When we talk about this idea of sales and marketing alignment, this this is one of the buzzwords these days in B2B. But you talk a lot about this concept. Uh, how do you define sales and marketing alignment? What are the things that you think sales should be doing to make marketing's job easier? And what are some of the things that marketing should be doing to make sales job easier every single day?
It's a tough one because you just basically have to care both ways. Because it's like as simple said, but very hard to do. But what our marketing team does, they are at our pipeline meetings. They do listen to the calls where we ping them on some of our gong calls as well to listen to the snippets. They do produce the content of stuff that we were not able to respond on sales calls. So they're in it, like with the skin as well. They were the first one to see that, oh, there came an inbound of somebody they retargeted or somebody that has been touched at an event for some time ago. It's like, oh, Laura, there's that lead that you spoke with last year at SaaS or something. They're coming in inbound right now. So they care, but it goes the other way as well. And when we see that there's content that we're missing out, we're going back to marketing to figure this out, how this works. Same goes for LinkedIn stuff. What I'm doing on LinkedIn, is this sales or is this marketing? So it is a very tiny balance because I think it's definitely not sales, but it is kind of top of funnel that helps me to close deals. But because it is so closely connected to Dreamdata, then I do care what we generate on the platforms where our buyers find us. But it also helps me to close more deals because people would know my name and they would say, okay, probably she could do an okay job as a sales rep as well if I book a demo with her. So that collaboration has to be more structured, like what kind of things do we do together, but you have to also basically care. And usually it has to come from marketing. So what I've seen not work in marketing before in time is that if marketing is bringing in leads and sitting back and saying, I brought you 100 leads now last month, you just didn't close it. Okay, so if we're only looking at it like that, it will be a toxic relationship all the time. But if marketing does care of what happens next with those leads, so what was the source or the channel that I brought those leads in from that closed fastest, closed the biggest deals, let me bring more of that type. Which of those were just vanity metrics and actually should never focus on them, neither my time nor my money? And if some of those good quality leads did not proceed to any part of the further pipeline, we need to figure out together with sales, why did this happen? And marketing can always ask, but also sales has to feed that this was an amazing lead, but they didn't close because like the timing, the competition, something else. And then we also know that the leads that marketing brought in, they were very good, but sales were not able to close some specific part of those leads because of the conditions that have happened. So a lot of data points that are going into this kind of collaboration for it to work out as well.
Right. So it sounds like for sales, the biggest uh, the biggest thing that they can feed marketing is customer insights, and then on the other hand, for marketing, what they need to look at are patterns on how the pipeline is moving, right, based on different channels, etc., and then do more of what's working.
Yeah, and that's what we do through Dreamdata as well, because we do want to save our paid
Yeah.
efforts in me and only bring in leads that are actually either moving to sales qualified or new business and no bad vanity traffic. So that kind of is the mantra of the whole company. But also, if marketing cares about that in whichever company, that means the collaboration will be much easier with sales, because sales would know, oh, you brought me a lead from G2 or from Capterra. It's like, oh, I know that very likely, like with the 20% sure that I'm going to close this within the coming 2 months or something.
Um, right. That sounds that makes perfect sense. I'm just thinking, what are some of the metrics that you think of, um, for example, for marketers that they should be paying attention to once the lead has been brought in?
Mhm.
Should they, for example, be looking at sales win rate? Are there any other metrics?
That's a good question. So first, it goes even more back, defining your ideal customer profile. So if you have defined your ideal customer profile and some of those leads that are coming in are outside the ideal customer profile, you have to look even closer to those. How are those performing? Because either you will broaden your ideal customer profile, or you would just say, please, let's try not to bring any more of those, and make sales aware that this account is too small or too big, or this is manufacturing, we never work with manufacturing. And once you bring in ideal customer profile leads, then you have to check a couple of things. So the historics of that first touch channel that we have seen on this deal. So how good were we to close those deals? How fast usually do they close? Or how fast do they move to sales qualified? So if it was a webinar, for us, it takes, I don't know, like 500 days to convert webinar leads. So it's good to have them, but that's gonna be like cooking forever. But if they come in from a G2 or Capterra, that means that company is already in market evaluating the product and products between the competition. So we will know that this
Yeah.
one will probably close within the upcoming 2 months. And we have to focus everything we can to qualify them well, prepare very well for the demo meetings, and look extra into their account and so on. So marketers can look into first touch channel. What were the other channels that they were touching before they were booking the meeting? How many people are involved in the customer journey from the same company? Do we only see one? And is that person like maybe just joined the company or is too junior or something like that? You would not see that every single time as a marketer, because you work with quantity of data as well. But if
Yeah.
it's a perfect ICP and you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like for what? Like Google comes in for you and would say, whoa, but there is like an intern at Google that thinks flying cat marketing is cool. It's like, we're likely not going to close this, even though that they came from a channel that was actually very cool. So you would see
Right.
the target accounts that you would like to close, but from the quantity perspective, look at the first touch, look at the time that it usually takes for you to close this, and sales will do their magic afterwards. And check, why did we lose it if we did?
Yeah. I think, marketers, whenever they work in isolation, like with their own idea of researching content and however they want to do it, um, it's good as, until they have some other kind of metrics to achieve. For example, when they are only talking about how many number of MQLs did I bring in, it's very easy, right? But when we have objectives like growing the deal size and, for example, increasing the retention rate and those kind of things, then it becomes extremely hard um, without extracting insights from the sales, support, and success team, right, within companies. So yeah, totally agreed there. Um, so there's a lot of pushback these days on website blog content or SEO in general, right? Especially in the B2B space. Some folks just think that it's that not that big of a deal when it comes to 2023 buyer journeys. And dark social is a thing now, and everyone is just against putting some content on your blog and thinking of SEO as a growth channel. But I remember you shared some data the other day on LinkedIn, where you were talking about how organic search and how your blog content plays a role in the conversion journey of your customers.
Yeah.
What do you think of SEO as a growth channel, and, for example, the blog of your company's website in converting people?
Sure. So the metric you're talking about is that I think it's like 83% of all of our new business deals have touched our blog.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
We can go back to all of those touch points. Where in the customer journey did this happen and what type of a blog it was, which also helps us to understand what type of content should we be writing more to educate clients. So it goes back to the education at the beginning where I was speaking to. So nobody wants a salesperson to educate you. They want to educate themselves. And if they cannot find the education pieces on your website, they're going to go and Google it somewhere else and land on somebody else's website. And if they're good at at converting those prospects, well, they're going to convert there, not on your website. And the first thing that Stefan did when we had not that much content on the website when we joined, he was listening to salespeople. What type of questions were we not able to answer on sales calls? And he made sure that we had content pieces about that. Every single question. If they've asked us about security compliance, we better write about that. If they don't know how to read the attribution models, we better write an educational post on our blog website. How do I read attribution model? What's the best attribution model, and so on. So that help us both to sell more productively, because either prospects come in more educated or we can send those pieces to them when they have the questions. And when somebody is starting to look for you on the search engines, they can find you as well due to those articles because you're constantly educating your audience. So if there are companies pushing back on SEO, I think it's a mistake. I mean, there's a lot of content being pushed out. There's a lot of shit content being pushed out as well, like just to rank on SEO. But I think with the upcoming AI stuff and like chat GPTs and so on, quality will win. Like everybody can start pushing shit quality content out all the time that will rank well on SEO. But the search engine optimization machines, they will get more clever as well, where they can see that this content has been produced by AI, and we
Yeah.
don't want 10,000 pieces of the same content all over the internet. But if this was written in a qualitative way for people to understand it, or is different in the nature because people are studying in a different ways, then it will rank even higher. So don't make a mistake and discount your SEO efforts. 100%.
Yeah, and at the same time, you don't want content pieces ranking and driving traffic with no people moving into the pipeline through that content. We at Flying Cat, talk a lot about, the fact that for any kind of content development, that all of the content that goes on your website, the research should start with customer research rather than keyword research. So instead of like going into Ahrefs and like keyword research tools, the initial point for you should be to think of what are some of the foundational level topics that my customers care about. Exactly as you mentioned, right? Listening to sales calls, support calls, for example, or maybe other kind of queries that are directly coming from the customers, and then turning them into an SEO optimized piece of content. So yeah, so basically the resonance with the customer should always be like the highest priority.
Exactly.
Um, so you, I've seen you almost, on LinkedIn at almost every B2B event that I can think of. You're almost at all of the SaaSter events, London, I think San Francisco, and then almost all of the B2B SaaS events, right, in general. And I'm really wondering, some folks really question whether it makes a lot of sense to be at those events. Um, and for example, I think there was this report that it costs about thousands of dollars to have a booth of your company's page there. And typically, your approach is very distinct from that, right? In terms of networking, you go there, you meet people, you participate in marathons, and those kind of things. So, uh, what is your approach to building meaningful connections? Uh, that also not just on a personal level, but also helps you facilitate the pipeline. Exactly as your role says. So, bringing in more business for the company through these events.
Yeah. Um, First, our CMO Stefan thinks that events are giving negative ROI and we should not be going to events. So
Okay.
it was kind of a almost a challenge for me to let me prove you wrong. And, and he's a marketer, so
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
marketer and he should be thinking, oh, field marketing, this is working. And so I was like, this is 2023 and people are going to events to, I don't know, party, drink, and go back home wasted. Like, let me prove you wrong. So what you're saying now, you're saying that you have seen me in a lot of SaaS events and so on, almost all of them and all that. So far with Dreamdata, I've been at 2 events. And those have been 2 SaaSters. SaaSter in San Francisco, SaaSter in London. So what you're noticing there is my way of showing marketing what does it mean to have events with positive ROI. So what it means is we have no booth. It is very expensive. It's like you have to pay at least like X thousands of dollars to have a booth, but it
Yeah.
also has to be good for people to remember it. So you
Mm.
paid the money, and besides that, then somebody will have to stand in it. You'll have to have swag. You'll have to have the conversation starters, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think it's much more impactful to have a couple of people at the event, especially people that are on LinkedIn actively, before we go to the event, several weeks before we start talking about it, that we're going to go there. What are we going to do? What's our target? We do pictures, we do videos, we do swag, we flood. And people start seeing that and start engaging with it because it's fun. It's like, oh, she's walking on the streets talking, she's going to go to SaaSter in London. Cool. And
Yeah.
then when we go to SaaSter in London, then that continues. There is no limit of posting once per day or twice per day. You just ship. You do video, you ship. You've got pictures, you've got learnings, you just ship, 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 ship all the time because people will see this. And even if it will not have that much engagement as you usually do, you will be able to redo that content afterwards as well. So
Mm.
post event content continues. So all this event play, one and a huge pillar of it is content. So you've seen me at very many events. I haven't been there, but in your mind and in a lot of people's mind, she's almost there all the time. She's not.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
I
thing
love this. I love this. I really love. I think perhaps it's like the magnitude of content that you put out from all of these events. For example, you have these very creative way of interviewing people at different occasions that I really enjoy, and those are the kind of things that get stuck in my brain, right? That gives me this impression that perhaps Laura is at like hundreds of conferences every year.
no, no, and then in addition to that, then we do side events, which is really paying off. Side events, people like those. They come and chill, and we don't try to push them to like get their email addresses to book meetings and so on. We do register them in order to be able to show in Dreamdata that events have ROIs. So we can show that some of the deals are moving to sales qualified and close later. And like the running thing, we've got the coordinator in the team who's helping us out with event, Patricia. She's amazing. She said, so, oh, Laura, you run. How about running in London? So, all right, if you make sure that everything is ready, I'll make sure there's content to do that, and I'll run.
Yeah.
That's fine. So that's kind of like that collaboration between marketing and sales as well. So, and I do get energy out of that. That's also a plus thing. But
Yeah.
2 events a year is enough.
And the kind of content that you put on your LinkedIn profile, it's like a wide variety of content, right? So you have a lot of personal stuff, and then you have a lot of, for example, a lot of memes. That's perhaps like a cultural thing for Dreamdata. I love everything that Sam puts out, and then you also have a lot of informational content, let it be in the form of video or normal written posts. And then there's, I think, another category which is super focused on the product. For example, you actually show how your product works.
Yeah.
How do you think of these different segments of content?
Yeah,
Is there a way that you map them out? Is there the way do you structure them? What is your thought process?
good point. So we know what kind of content produces pipeline, and that's product marketing. That like really, really strong or
Right.
really niche problems of marketing, and we tell how we solve them. It's like really product marketing. This is the stuff. But the way I structure this, so all the personal stuff that I do that it seems to be fun. Oh, you see me on the stage, or you see me with my kids, or you see me surfing and stuff like that. This is to drive engagement and to kind of entertain the eye of the viewers. So you have seen me doing all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't seem to be too stupid and too self-centric. Then
Yeah,
next
of
time I
course.
see something from you, which is more product related, more clever, then I will stop, probably not like it or comment on it, but I would see what is it that you actually stand for, what it is that you're selling. So people start to connect the dots that this person who's on the surfboard can actually also speak about attribution. And like, so LinkedIn doesn't stay just an annoying, boring platform that people just update their CVs upon, but you can also see like there is that work-life balance, and then kind of you're a real person, and then you meet me at the conference and say, oh, so it's actually similar. You're just taller than I expected. That's it. Everything else is the same. So kind of that is the thought process. Memes, it's not me. I'm not funny. And this is Sam, totally him. And sometimes if something goes viral and is nice to reshare, I do it, but it doesn't feel natural for me. So it's not my thing. And everything funny that comes out of it, very likely somebody else had the idea and I just posted it.
Okay, so that's very interesting. How do you think of uh, these different content segments that you have, in the way, like, what is the objective for each of these segments? So, for example, anything that you
Mm-hmm.
share more on a personal level or more broad, right? Let's say more generic.
Mm-hmm.
Is the objective back in your head is to bring more eyeballs to that content? And for example, if I think of your LinkedIn profile and the kind of content you put out in terms of funnel, can I say that all of that broad level content is to get more eyeballs, get more people into the funnel, and then the product marketing side is the bottom of the funnel, talking more about what can your product do so that people get into the pipeline. Would that be fair?
We even have a visual for that. So it's like the
Okay.
eyeballs is the top of it. There's like all that top level stuff, the fun stuff, and so on. Then you've got the clicks, so the the arrow clicks that you see. So that's where product marketing comes in. And then the last part is the money, the coins really that converts them into the next pipelines stages. And for me, like it started with social selling. I was not that personal posting before in time, but I started to do that. I think it's the ego boost that goes in there. But like the social selling conversations, when I speak about why do I do this, how do I do this, how do I structure this, or how, when I speak about that on video, it gathers a lot of engagement from marketers for me. And it's a lot, like a big part of it, but I book 0 demos out of it. The next part, when I talk about product marketing, those eyeballs that I had on the pieces about social selling, they're also seeing the product marketing stuff. And the ones that do have a problem or actively are looking for solutions like that, they will be clicking. So they will become into clicks that actually will become our pipeline even later. So it is actually a funnel in that way that you're thinking about.
Right. Okay, I think this has been great, Laura. I have one more question for you before we wrap this up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, for any company, that is thinking of, they have like a sales function, they have people on the sales side of things, and they're hearing about this idea of social selling and being active on LinkedIn and building connections and all of this kind of stuff, right? But as of now, they still have a traditional route of sales in the way that they do it, let it be inbound and outbound. What is your advice to them to start thinking of transforming their sales function?
Hmm. I think the sales function is being transformed really fast. So if you don't transform it, so you're going to miss out, and you're just going to be an old-fashioned salesperson that only can be hired at big companies. It's not bad with that, and nothing bad. Like you're gonna, but just it's not gonna be that fun, and it's gonna be very in the box work. If you do these type of tasks, usually you would convert your clients and so on. But if you want to be exponentially better than any of your colleague, either in the big company or in the smaller ones, you will still need to transform your role into either being more socially active, or all in all being present where your buyers are. So if it is on Twitter, on LinkedIn, somewhere else, you have to start building that relationship, because education happens somewhere else, not in your sales call. You have to help them buy, not to help them figuring out how can they solve the solution.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this, and taking out the time for this. I totally love the conversation, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Usman. It was a pleasure. And yeah, we're looking forward to more collaborations together.
For sure.